Okay, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Facebook Live with myself, Ruth, from Top Scores. This is a Thursday regular live stream. Usually it's just myself with a bit of Q&A, but luckily this evening we have a very special guest. So Nick, let me just unmute you there. Good evening, Nick. Hi, welcome to Facebook Live.
Hi, Ruth. How are you going? Great to be here.
Thank you for joining me. I know it was a little bit, well, we had some technical issues, but we won't go into those. So welcome from wherever you're watching. If you're watching on the live, or if you're watching on replay or on YouTube or various Facebook locations, or even on LinkedIn, you are very welcome. So tonight we are talking about a little bit more in general for older children, roughly aged 12 plus. So let me know if you have children who are aged 12 plus, and we're always looking for something for them to do in the summer, right? I remember when my children were slightly younger, I was always looking for something really meaningful and really useful for them to do in the summer. And so if you are interested in college in the US at some point in the future, keep listening. So Nick, let us know what have you got cooking in terms of the summer program that we are collaborating on?
Okay, yeah, great, Ruth. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity. So the organisation that I'm representing is an organisation called the Global Forum on Human Settlements. This summer, in August, we're running a program where we're going to be visiting a number of Ivy League schools. We're also going to be taking students to a number of sustainable project programs in the East Coast of the US. And to finalise everything, we're going to be going to the United Nations headquarters, and we're going to be celebrating United Nations Day. So we've got some wonderful plans organised for summer.
So maybe, thanks, Nick. Good introduction, and just while more people are joining, and then, you know, if I'm the parent of a child aged 12 to 17, 18, and I am thinking of college in the US, why is it important that they would do a number of programs or activities like this before they apply to college?
That's a very good question, and I suppose it's sort of, we started getting into a deep discussion about the differences between the UK universities in comparison to the US universities. The approach that the universities in the US like to take or like to see is more of a vocational type of an approach. What is it that your son or child or daughter is involved in? What extracurricular activities have they participated in? So that's one of the important things, and having certificates, especially that have been recognised by the United Nations and by top universities, is something that we can help and assist with.
But actually, I mean, my two are going to UK universities. One's going to go this year and one's going the next year. But, the personal statement that you write, it can be really important. The UK universities still do want to see a breadth and depth in terms of what the child's been, especially when you've got so many children nowadays applying to, say, Oxbridge or Russell Group, and they've all predicted 3 or 4 A stars. Then how do you start to differentiate between the children so that the experiences and what they've learned from those experiences can really count for UK universities too, in my limited experience. So welcome to those who've joined us since. So we're talking about a summer program like no other. So which universities in the US are you taking the campers to?
So Ivy League schools. So we're going to be visiting Yale, Harvard, MIT, Columbia, and Princeton University.
Right. And wow, I mean, that's amazing. So on the East Coast, so they're all relatively within driving distance of one another. So what will the children do when they go to the universities?
So they'll have an orientation or have a bit of a look around the universities, have a bit of a discussion with some of the enrolment officers just to understand whether this is the right university for them, sort of also understand what their extracurricular activities are, what areas on academic side, the areas that they're shining, what areas that they're sort of lacking in, and basically what is it that they're hoping to achieve by going to that university.
And so this will help each of the children, the teenagers, to maybe form more of an opinion about what they are more interested in or less interested in.
Yeah, I think it's definitely very thought invoking, and can sort of we've seen a lot of people go on these sorts of camps and literally come back changed with respect to having seen the light. Being able to, and it is only a 2-week program, but it is very full on. Having the opportunity to visit that many universities in that short, sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming, but obviously there is only a short period of time, so we try to include as much in as possible. And I think you'll find certain students will sort of tend to go towards certain universities depending on what their sort of aspirations and goals are.
We'll put all the details in the comments below. But you've done this. You did this last year. So tell us how it went last year. And I know that you cooperated with a couple of schools that sent a reasonably large number of students from that school, right?
Yeah, sure. So what we did last year was in conjunction with the United Nations climate change. So this wasn't actually in the US. This was a little bit different. It was an extracurricular activity of which the students received certification for. And it was accredited by the United Nations, and it was visiting basically COP28. So we had the opportunity to take the students around and have a visit COP28. We got them to take around, have a look at the different sort of.
Can we just define for those that might not know what is COP28?
So COP28 is the United Nations Climate Change Council.
And so what do they do there? I mean, they sit, they listen to some of the presentations, discussions.
Yeah.
Is that how
so what
goes?
So we organised a specific event for them, a specific program in the form of a symposium, where the students were involved in a sort of a dialogue with United Nations, high-level United Nations officials, where they were involved to give a presentation on some of the risks relating to climate change, especially towards marine life. It was very good. It was very well received, and I think the students were extremely happy.
Yeah. So is it more for the climate change and tell me more about the sustainability angle of this program?
So the sustainability program is obviously, we work very closely. Our organisation is accredited by the United Nations, and the status that we have is with the United Nations Economic and Social Council. Mm-hmm. So that basically allows us to work very closely with the United Nations with respect to the Sustainable Development Goals.
Mm-hmm. And so I think all of the schools, especially the IB schools, are doing quite a lot now on these Sustainable Development Goals. Even the children from 5 and 6 years old, they're already learning about this. So they should all be relatively familiar, right?
Yeah, well, I unfortunately, there isn't really a choice because we're at the interim, basically, of the goals which expire in 2050, and the interim goals are at 2030. So we're only 6 years away, and we're still way, way behind with respect to those goals. And unfortunately, COVID had a huge impact on that. So, a lot of schools now, the schools that I'm working with are working overtime to try and work closer and closer towards, because some of the wonderful work that some of the schools were doing obviously was disrupted because of the COVID issues.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So, I mean, these are some sort of big names. Obviously, they're going to go to Ivy League schools. You've got the United Nations and the the Global Youth Program. That's a program within the United Nations which this summer camp is attached to. Is that right?
So the Global Youth Program, the program that I'm spearheading at the moment, sits under the Global Forum on Human Settlements, which is our organisation. So our organisation as we've been in operation for 18 years, and we have, in close dialogue and discussion with the United Nations, we've decided to come up with a global youth program specifically designed for, students between the ages of 12 and 18. Obviously, we accept students, north and south of those age groups, but that's sort of the niche, and that's the area that we're trying to sort of bring awareness and create, strong dialogue.
I mean, if my children were a wee bit younger, so if for parents who are thinking about, like I said at the top of the stream, we're always looking for something interesting, meaningful, worthwhile for our children to do. So why would parents choose to send their children on this camp?
Well, I think that there needs to be a focus towards, American universities. If there is they don't necessarily have to be Ivy League universities. It's in American universities in general, because obviously the Ivy League, universities are very much at the forefront of all the universities in the US, and that's no disrespect to the other ones. But it can sort of put you in the right direction. It will sort of help you to sort of go into that direction of where you want to go, number one. It can also open your mind. If you're a student, also as a parent, open minds towards, what different universities have to offer. Some students are very strong when it comes to sustainability, whereas others are stronger when it comes to, law. It's very difficult to be able to pinpoint on, what is the best university for my child, or what is the best university for me. And also simultaneously, along the way, we're getting students involved with some activities inside the United Nations for which they will be accredited for. It's just a wonderful way to help your children to be able to go in the right direction.
Yeah, lucky kids.
And also gay network. It's all about networking these days. It's not what you know. These days it's who you know. So making sure you're in contact with the right people, building those relationships up, are also very, very important.
Well, what's the accreditation that you mentioned, Nick?
So there are two accreditations that we are giving. One is from Rutgers University in the US. So there's a leadership accreditation that we'll be giving to each of the students that participate, which is very well and very highly sought after in the US, and is very helpful in gaining admission into some of the top universities towards leadership. And also the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, in conjunction with our organisation, the Global Forum on Human Settlements, will be issuing a certification, a certificate, in recognition of the participation of the students that are involved.
Amazing. So if you do have children aged roughly 12 to 18, but a little bit flexible on that, and they're interested in US universities, then definitely something to think about. We'll put all of the details below. Is there anything else that we should let parents know about this?
Yeah, well, it's probably the most important thing is it's not exclusive for students. If parents would like to come along and accompany their students on this visit, we are very well, we're very warmly welcome them to participate, and hopefully they'll have a wonderful time and learn a lot about what's happening. So
how many of the parents tagged along last year?
I think probably about 25%. So yeah. Okay. 20 to 25% of the students had their parents that came along.
Okay. I mean, if I was a student, if I was 15 and was going on a summer camp, I don't think I'd really want my mum and dad to tag along, but that's just me. But that's a good option for some of the parents. We'll put all of the details, the price, the registration link, and all of that jazz. And we've got some, so it's actually very limited spots. And when is the deadline? I think it's sort of reasonably soon.
We would say at the moment, the end of end of April, early March.
Yeah, end of April, early May.
Early May. Sorry.
Because we're going backwards. Yeah, so
Been a
that's
long
really
day.
very serious. I know. I can't believe the summer is nearly here, actually, and Christmas. We're making plans for Christmas. And I know that you've got something coming up in October as well.
Yes.
So do you want to
this is very
touch on that
exciting.
really? It's not that long away.
Well, this is huge, and it's very much focused on working closely with international students. It will be actually in the United Nations headquarters, and you'll be working the students will have the opportunity to work very closely with some of the senior officials within the United Nations. It will be a 2 to 3 day forum, specifically in the United Nations, in New York, and it's we're still in early preparation for the youth side of it, but don't worry, Ruth, I'll make sure I keep you updated.
Yeah, and we'll put that information out. And I know that we're also talking to some of the schools directly, so parents might hear about it through their schools as well. Let's see if you have any questions. Oh, so there's a form link. Thanks to my colleague who's keeping tabs. I think we'll leave it there for now, Nick, if that's okay. And so for those of you watching on the replay, if you want to get in touch with Nick, we'll put all of the contact details. But register your interest through that form, and then actually, Nick, then you will or one of your team will be in touch and answer any of the questions that the parents might have. Is that okay?
Yes, well, thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nick. All right, we'll see you. I'll see you in real life very, very
Bye.
soon.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
So I will stay on here just for a little bit. If any of you have any questions relating to international schools in Hong Kong or independent schools in the UK, if you have any questions, go ahead and ask in the comments. What I will say just before, or if there are any questions, I went on the radio yesterday, first time in quite a long time, first time to go to the studio. I always got lazy, we were doing it from home. But they called me up, they asked if I will go in and comment on the ESF fee increase. And this happens every single year. ESF put out a notice to parents. They might even put out a press release, and therefore the press pick it up and they run with it. And shock horror, ESF have increased their fees this year. And then so have most of the schools increased their fees this year. So thank you to those of you that helped me out with a very quick bit of crowdsourcing research in the group. So people were dropping in the announcements from various schools, and we have increases from about 3% up to about 7% this year, maybe 2% up to 7%. So the link's on the Facebook group if you want to go back to listen to I was on the show for about 15 minutes bit yesterday morning. But you know, they always ask about ESF as if they're the bad guys, or they're the ones to be criticized, but you know, every school will increase its fees every single year, and that's what I said, and that's what I always say. So we produce a budgeting guide every year. If you haven't got a hold of it, you'll be able to find it somewhere on the Facebook group on our webpage. But what we do is we actually calculate, it is a long, laborious task, which is hopefully going to be made easier this year with a bit of AI help, but we keep obviously lots and lots of data on all of the schools. And so what we do is we call it the budgeting guide, because it's not just the tuition fees, it's the tuition fees plus what you actually need to pay every single year. And that's the amount that you need to budget for your child every single year. So we've got that available, and we produce a table which shows you the maximum that you would have to pay for a primary school student and the maximum that you would have to pay for a secondary school student. And that includes the tuition fees plus the other fees. There's another piece to this as well, the other fees, because of course it's the tuition fees that go up every year, but the other fees, they don't go up every year, but they're just still there, right? You have to budget for them. So these other fees include things like debentures, like capital levies, like entry fees, or whatever the school wants to call these other fees. But it ends up, it can add 20 to 25% on top sometimes, or even a little bit more of the actual school fees. It's a little bit of a grey area, I will say. It's so much of a grey area that I've been passed to about 6 or 8 people in the Education Bureau in the last few days to try to get to the bottom of this. In 2020, the Ombudsman of Hong Kong did an investigation into these other fees. And I at the time, I put out a series of blog articles on it. I guess parents had complained. Was the catalyst for why they launched this investigation. So the investigation was conducted, and they produced a report, runs to about 20-something, 30-something pages. If you scroll to the end of the report, they've made 2 recommendations from memory. One is that they would need to seek approval for each of these additional fees, and the other is that they will create a database where parents like you and I can actually go to say, oh yes, this school has approval for this, that, or the other fee. They haven't done that yet, and it's slightly frustrating. The Ombudsman, I don't think they have powers to enforce. It's simply guidelines and recommendations at the moment. I know that the schools have been up and down to the EDB for a number of series of meetings on what they should be doing, but it's all very, very loose. So as a parent, what you should do is ask the school for the approval letter. So the tuition fees are published, and those are publicly available, and I can show you how to find the fees certificate. In fact, there is a little video somewhere where I take you through the EDB website to show you the fees certificate. Now that's fine, but as we know, the schools will actually then ask you to pay different amounts, and that's where it becomes a bit grey, because are these amounts approved? They must be approved now. So I just had a parent yesterday where their school has moved the goalposts effectively, and they've introduced an extra capital levy where it didn't exist before. And as a parent, you feel a little bit helpless, and there's really not a lot that you can do, unfortunately. So yeah, be careful of these fee increases. If you're putting your child into school for 12, 13, 14 years, you'll need to budget for a fee increase of 2 to 7% every single year. And, you see these grey hairs. So I'm just about to finish paying school fees for my children, and I cannot wait. So that's a little rant about school fees. This is the time of year where all of the schools are informing their parents that they are putting the fees up, and we'll be tabulating that, and we'll issue the new budgeting guide around about July, August time. Some of the schools are very late. And then we'll have that available in September. So thank you to Nick for coming on. So he was in a public area, so we cut that a little bit short. But if you are interested in the summer camp that Nick was talking about, click the link below. The form is there, and no obligation, just to express some interest, just to have a little bit of a chat to see if it is right for you and your children or not. And then that's been me ranting on about fees a little bit. So I will leave it there. I thank you for watching live or not, and I'll be back on next Thursday at 6 p.m. Take care, have a lovely evening, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.